The next speaker tonight is the CEO and founder of Hashable. I don't know about you, but my phone's been crazy. People are hashing it up. Who's hashing it up tonight? Woo-hoo-hoo! If you haven't downloaded the app yet, download it. Android and iPhone. Very simple, easy way to exchange e-business cards and keep track of your relationships. So Mike Yavonditte, he sold his company, Quigo, a competitor to Google, in 2007 to AOL for a large sum of money in the hundreds of millions. And he's on to his next deal, Hashable. He's a good friend. I mean, he's a friend of mine. We've had a lot of fun going back and forth, meeting at South by Southwest. So I'll just give it up to him. Mike, thanks for coming out. Everyone give him a hand. Here you go, bud.
Thanks a lot. Which way? Forward. So this will go forward and this will go backward when you press up. Okay. Thank you very much. I can barely see anything from here. My name is Mike Yavonditte. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Hashable. It's a professional networking service that's aimed at smartphone users. It's really evolving into a personal CRM for smartphone users, and it's a pretty fun project, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk today because I wear a number of hats. I live in New York City. I'm the founder of a company backed by Union Square Ventures. I'm a venture capitalist. I'm an angel investor in about 35 companies now. Clout, Flurry, Meetup. I'm an investor in Techstars. So I am very close to the startup scene. I love it. And I spend a lot of my time in New York trying to give back to the community. I'm 41 years old. I'm not a kid anymore, so I feel as though I have some semblance of obligation to give back. So how do I do that? I spend a lot of my time early in the morning or at night or even on weekends sometimes meeting and mentoring founders and CEOs of startups. I do about 10 or 12 of those meetings a month, usually at 7 or 8 a.m. for coffee or breakfast, sometimes lunch, sometimes something on the weekend, coffee or something. And I spend a lot of time mentoring people on how to build products because I'm a product development person. I'm also a business development person. Sometimes I even mentor people out of being founders and CEOs, which is a really interesting and sometimes daunting process. Sometimes the chemistry is just not right between the founders of a company, or sometimes the idea is not right, or sometimes the person running it doesn't have the right idea, that sort of thing. So I try to sometimes prevent startups from existing or occurring. I do it without investing or without taking advisor shares or any kind of compensation whatsoever. So that's kind of the key thing. That's kind of what I do. But I'm here to actually talk to you a little bit about the 7 lessons I've learned. I've been in the startup world since 1996. Juno, who went public in 1999. Alta Vista, which was a complete and utter failure. I worked at IAC for a while, which was a good place to hide during the bursting of the bubble. And then I built one of the largest online advertising companies ever called Quigo, which was really the only credible competitor to Google AdSense. And then we sold that in 2007 for $350 million to AOL, 2 months before Bear Stearns collapsed. So you can say my timing is pretty impeccable. And then I spent 6 months on the couch and then came off the couch and became a pretty prolific angel investor. 35 investments, probably ranks me in the top 10 in the country. But what have I learned in the last 15 years? That's what I'm going to take you through tonight. This movement towards, the first thing is the movement towards lean startup I'm fascinated by. I'm fascinated by because I think it's an amazing concept, and it's a concept that everyone should follow. But I think the thing from a perspective of an investor that I get concerned about is that sometimes people equate lean with being small. And I'm here to say that that's not true. It doesn't have to be small. You don't have to think small. If you're lean, you can still build a great, large company, and investors want to see the biggest company possible. So as an investor, I say, yeah, use the lean principles and methodologies, but try to build, think big. I mean, try to build the biggest company you can. I mean, the internet is absolutely enormous right now. It's getting larger by the day. The amount of time and attention people are spending on their mobile device is literally going straight up. The amount of minutes being spent on mobile devices is going straight up. So the opportunities are enormous. Think big. Second principle, you can never have enough money. That is a really important concept. Corey looked for advice and took $1 million. My guess is if someone offered him $2 million, he may have seriously considered it. The reason why I say you can never have too much money is because once you have an idea that you know is marketable, is commercially viable, and now it's about execution and implementation, you need to hurry up because the competitive landscape is intense. It's not going to get any easier, and you never know what's out in front of you. Is the stock market going to crash next year? It could. Is the macroeconomic environment going to be the wind at your back, or is it going to be a headwind? No one knows, and no one knows what's going to happen from day to day. The IPO market could dry up again. All those sorts of things. So my advice to anyone that listens is, when you have an idea that you know is commercially viable, take as much money as possible. The third thing is a really big issue. I call it being introspective. And what that basically means is know what you're good at, but really have a handle on what you're not good at. What is your company good at? What do you do that's really good? Do you have a great advertising company or a great ticket service or a great group buying service or a great B2B platform for Fortune 500 companies? You got to understand what your product is, not what you think you want to be someday or what you think you could be someday if X, Y, and Z happened. But you really have to be honest with yourself and know who you are. Look in the mirror and know who you are. Know what you're bad at, and have a constantly changing and evolving list of problems that you're trying to solve. What are those 5 or 10 things that you know are fundamentally broken about your product or your business model? Don't try to change the subject. Don't try to sweep them under the rug. Don't think that 1 or 2 or 3 new product features are gonna make all those users that don't like your product all of a sudden magically like it. It doesn't work that way. I mean, this trend towards less is more is enormously important. And I think the startups who can and the companies that can be really introspective about what they're good at and what they're not good at are going to be successful. The fourth thing is an obvious one. Everyone knows it. But I think some people are intimidated by it. It's hire great people. I mean, the lesson I learned at my last company, Quigo, I was a first-time CEO. I had absolutely no experience running a company. We had 110 employees, $75 million in revenue. I didn't own the company. I had venture capitalists. I had raised $20 million. I had at least one venture capitalist on the board that hated my guts. I had no idea of, one day or the other, when I walked in, were they going to fire me someday? Even though we were one of the fastest growing companies in the country, we still had problems just like anyone else. And I think one of the most valuable lessons I learned is Bob Davis, the founder of Lycos, was on my board. He was not the guy that hated me. He was actually, I think, a guy that liked me. Pulled me aside and said, look, your team is not so good. He said, I think you're really good, and I think this person's really good, but I don't think the other cast of characters you have around you are really good. They're not world class. And if you don't get your butt on a plane and go find a world-class CTO and a world-class VP of engineering, this company is not going to ever realize its true potential. And I at first resisted that. It took me several months to finally heed his advice. And the thing that I was nervous about was are they really just trying to find world-class people to put around me so that they can fire me and have someone else take my job? I mean, that's a classic trick that VCs pull on founders that they don't really like. They say, you need a chief operating officer, or you need a sales-minded, president of your company. And that's usually code language for, we don't think you're up to the task, and in 6 months after that person finds his legs, you're going to be replaced. And so I had an incredible amount of anxiety and fear around, am I going to be replaced? Am I going to be pushed aside? This is my ticket to really great financial success. Am I going to be pushed out? And the answer was no. I got a great piece of advice from my father along the way, and he said, look, no one's more passionate, no one bleeds for the company more than you do, no one understands it more than you do, no one works harder than you do. If they try to fire you, they're crazy. And so that was the same thing Bob Davis was telling me. And eventually I believed him. I got on a plane, I went to Silicon Valley. Right as I was doing it, my data center crashed. Remember those things called data centers? There was no cloud. My data center literally melted down. I got angry calls from Fortune 500 CFOs from like Fox News and USA Today saying, if you crash my site one more time, which is what we did, you're going to be toast. I found out that there was a world-class CTO working at eBay, a guy named Marty Abbott, who was disgruntled. He had been there for 6 years. He didn't like working there anymore. He made a lot of money, wasn't particularly fond of the culture, didn't feel like he really was a part of the success because it was already $1 billion company by the time he got there. And so he felt like before he retired, he wanted one more shot to build something great. And so as luck would have it, I somehow stumbled upon him. In one phone call, in one quick meeting, I had him moving his entire family to New York. Within literally a week of meeting him, he started. He said, do you mind if I bring Mike Fisher, who's the sitting head of engineering at PayPal, along with me? And I said, no problem. If you got a few more, he said, there's 5 or 6 other, world-class guys like Randy Wigginton, who was the number 6 employee at Apple. He's a great developer. He said, the problem is, you're going to have to pay these guys a lot of money. I said, okay, what's that mean? At the time, I was making $150,000 a year salary. He said, well, Mike Fisher makes about $1 million a year. So, you're going to have to somehow meet him halfway. And I said, wow, that seems incomprehensible to me. Good for him. What am I going to do? So I went to my board, and I said to Bob Davis, who's a pretty tough and somewhat mercurial guy, and I said, I got a problem. I said, I got Marty. That was the good news, but the guys he wants to bring are really expensive. I'm the CEO. I'm making $150,000. If I want to hire Mike Fisher and have this incredible tech team, I've got to pay this guy like $400,000 a year. And Bob Davis said, go for it. He said, as long as you have the courage to have those kind of people around you, and you're not, you're okay with them making 2 or 3 times more than you, he says, I guarantee you will never, ever look back with any kind of regret. And you know what? He was right. That was an incredibly liberating experience. And from that point forward, for any of the tech freaks, the IT freaks in the audience, we had 5 nines from that point forward. Literally, not a single. We went almost 24 months without a single minute of downtime. Talk about having an incredible IT infrastructure. And these guys built an incredible company, and we went on to be, like I said, a very, very successful company. And that's a real life example of you got to hire great people. You gotta